engage himself in peacemaking and in ending wars, that's usually applauded. So this is one of the few times, for a lot of different reasons, I don't know what they may be, but maybe I can speculate what they are, where people actually criticize a president trying to end a war. Usually when you're trying to end wars, the international community applauds you. This is one of the few wars I've ever seen where some people in the international community condemn you for trying to help end a war. But that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're going to continue to do as long as our role is in our engagement is a positive one. And hopefully the war will end. The sooner the better. It should have ended a long time ago. It should have never actually happened. This war should have never happened. This war would have never happened if Donald Trump had been president of the United States at the time it began. But you know, that's what happened, and so now here we are. So we're going to continue to do everything we can to try to bring it to an end. And if we can be successful at it, I think the world will be a better place. And if we can't, then unfortunately the suffering and the dying and the killing will continue, and that's not good for anybody, but that's where we find ourselves. So hopefully we can stop it, but let's see.
Next is CBS News, please, Olivia.
Thank you very much. Budapest is, in fact, beautiful. Mr. Secretary, on the notion of a golden age, why isn't the United States conditioning deeper cooperation with Budapest on Hungary reducing its extensive and ongoing deepening cooperation with China, which is a strategic rival for the United States? Secondly, if, despite President Trump's endorsement and your visit here, Prime Minister Orbán does not succeed and loses the April election, does the U.S. commit to working with his challenger constructively? Prime Minister Orbán, do you commit to accepting electoral defeat if it happens? And to both of you, Prime Minister Orbán has said that the exemption that Hungary has been granted for Russian energy purchases is indefinite. The U.S. has said it was for 1 year. Which one is it? Thank you.
All right, well, let me start by answering that question. First of all, so everybody can be very clear. I made this point repeatedly. I'll make it again. Under President Trump, it is our expectation that every nation on earth is going to act in their national interest. That's what nations are supposed to do. If the Prime Minister of Hungary does not act in the national interest of Hungary, he won't be Prime Minister for long. But who's going to act in the national interest of Hungary if their Prime Minister doesn't do it? If your government is not acting in your national interest, then who will? By the way, we feel the same way about America. So in those instances in which our national interest and some other countries' national interests are aligned, that is an opportunity for extraordinary partnership. And we have many, many areas where our national interests are aligned. Where they're not aligned or where we have some differences, that's where that alignment and the other issues, that's where this relationship, that's where these deep ties to one another are so important, because that's where you can find accommodation, that's where you can hear each other out, that's where maybe you can work together on. But we're not asking any country in the world to isolate themselves from anybody. We understand that every country in the world has to deal with the reality of their geography, of their economy, of their history, and of the challenges of their future. We will obviously share with partners and friends concerns we may have about certain things, but as an example, the United States, you mentioned China as an example, okay? We have trade and relations with China. The President of the United States is going to travel in April to China. Why? Because China's a big country. It's got 1 billion-something people, second largest economy in the world. They have nuclear weapons. It would be crazy. Okay, it's insane for the United States and China not to have relations and interact with one another. Now, two big countries like this, do we have differences? We absolutely do. And we'll have to manage those differences. And some of those differences are things we've spoken very frankly and clearly and repeatedly about the fact that it is not good for the world. It's not good for anybody to rely on one country or one economy for 90% of anything, especially things like critical supply chains. This is a reality. We want to diversify supply chains around the world. We've spoken clearly about it. That's not an anti-China thing. That's just the reality that over-dependence on one source is not good. And especially when there's been a willingness in the past to use it as leverage against each other. But we expect, we pursue these things within the context of the U.S. national interest. And that's why we met with the Chinese in South Korea earlier in the year, and we're able to reach an understanding on some trade matters. That was a mutual interest between us and them. So geopolitics is difficult because it requires a little bit of maturity and seriousness. Okay? It requires a little bit of seriousness about these things have real implications, and the balancing of relations between nation states requires maturity and seriousness. So our relationship here, you asked the last question about it. Look, I'm just telling you guys what it is. Okay? The president has an extraordinarily close relationship to the prime minister. He does, and it has had tangible benefits in our relationship. I'm not going to speculate about the future. You know, what happens in this country is up to the voters of this country to determine and decide, and we love the people of Hungary. But there's no reason to sugarcoat it. I'm going to be very blunt with you. The prime minister and the president have a very, very close personal relationship and working relationship, and I think it has been beneficial to the relationship of our two countries. What's that? I'm sorry? Yeah, but here's the way I would couch that. Those sanctions waivers happened, as much as anything else, because of the relationship between the Prime Minister and the President. And so I think all I can tell you is that relationship and the importance of that relationship and the importance of that relationship to our bilateral relationship underpins the decision the President made. And I think we'll continue to underpin it as long as that relationship is a factor in our bilateral relations.
Sir, you mentioned the invitation of President Trump. I have a question for both of you. Have been any discussion regarding a potential visit by President Trump? And if so, when might it take place? And will it be a peace summit? And a brief question is, have there been any progress toward the new Hungarian U.S. tax treaty? Because the last one is terminated 2 years ago. Thank you.
Yeah, on the visit, I don't have any news for you on it today, other than I know the President would love to come, and I know the President would love to be here. Obviously, like any world leader, there's a lot of balancing going on, but we'll see what happens. I mean, the President has made very clear his feelings about the Prime Minister, both on a personal and on a political level, in terms of the relationship and the impact it's had on us. And so I'm certainly here today, because I wanted to make sure that, having been in Munich for the security conference being so close by, we saw an opportunity to be here today and build on that historic gathering that we had. I don't have any updates for you on the tax treaty per se today, but we may soon. Something we'll look at.
Mr. Prime Minister, two questions, Mr. Secretary. Iran is pursuing a nuclear agreement with the U.S. that it says would deliver economic benefits for both sides. Is that acceptable for the U.S., even if it doesn't cover Tehran's ballistic missile program? Recently, a U.S. immigration judge has ruled that there were no grounds to deport Tufts University student who wrote an op-ed on Gaza. A second judge said using deportation as a threat violated the First Amendment rights of people like her, because those rights apply to foreigners. What is your response to that? And Mr. Prime Minister, I just wanted to follow up on the China angle. Secretary just spoke about balancing relationships. You've been pushing a lot for more Chinese investments in Hungary. How will you make sure that that does not create a problem in your relationship with Washington? Thank you.
Yeah, on the two questions you asked, first of all, on the particular case of the student, look, my job at the State Department is, if I identify someone who I believe is present, someone who's a visitor, a guest to the United States, and we identify that their presence in our country poses a threat to our foreign policy, to our national security, we're gonna take that person's visa away. We're gonna take their visa away. That's what we're gonna do. We've done that in a lot of cases over the last year. We've done it. Fact is that visas are not a right. I've said this repeatedly. I don't know why it's so hard for some to comprehend it. So let me repeat it again. A visa, no one's entitled to a visa. There is no constitutional right to a visa. Okay, a visa is a permission to enter our country as a visitor. If you enter our country as a visitor, and as a visitor in our country, be it a student, a tourist, a journalist, whatever you want to be, and you undertake activities that are against the national interest and national security of the United States, we will take away your visa. In fact, if we knew you were going to do it, we probably wouldn't have given you your visa. That's what we do. The decision to remove someone from our country after we take away our visa, that belongs to other agencies of our government. As far as judges are concerned, judges, that's a different branch of government. They're not going to tell us how to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. If they have an issue with the process by which someone was removed, then obviously that's an issue for other agencies in our government that are involved in enforcing that. All I can opine to you on is taking away someone's visas. And no judge is going to tell the executive branch how to conduct foreign policy, because that's not up to judges, that's up to the executive branch. On your first question about Iran, Look, doing a deal with Iran is not easy. I said it yesterday, I'll repeat it again today. I mean, we have to understand that Iran ultimately is governed, and its decisions are governed by Shia clerics, radical Shia clerics, okay? These people make policy decisions on the basis of pure theology. That's how they make their decisions. So it's hard to do a deal with Iran. We've always said it's hard, but we're going to try. That's what the president is trying. I'm not going to prejudge those talks. I'm certainly not going to negotiate with Iran here in front of the press and on the stage. Our negotiators are on their way there now. They'll have meetings. We'll see what happens. We're hopeful there's a deal. The president always prefers peaceful outcomes and negotiated outcomes to things. He's a president that's shown his willingness to talk to anyone and meet with anyone. And I think if there's an opportunity here to diplomatically reach an agreement that addresses the things we're concerned about, we will be very open and welcoming to that. But I don't want to overstate it either. It's going to be hard. I mean, we're dealing, you know, it's been very difficult for anyone to do real deals with Iran because we're dealing with radical Shia clerics who are making theological decisions, not geopolitical ones. But let's see what happens. I hope it works out. We all hope it works out.
'Cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that